Good evening, everybody. It's about 7 o'clock. Time to zoom into wine. My name is Ian Blackburn, and I'm so happy to be with you tonight. It is Wednesday, March 5th, and we've got some amazing stuff to talk about. Every week at Zoom into Wine, we get together with some great people to talk about some amazing wines. Maybe it's a different grape variety, a different producer, different place, different category. And this is a topic that we haven't spent a lot of time on, but if we're going to cover the topic, the wines could not be much better than what we have for you tonight. So let's get into it. Tonight we're going to be talking about Gruner Veltliner and Riesling, and we do not mess around. There's one new like mantra for us in 2025. Life's too short to mess around with stuff that you got to get the best involved. And this is what we're going to be doing here at Zoom into Wine every Wednesday night. Well, let me break into the wines. We'll talk to the guests a little bit later, but I'm super thirsty, so here we go. Got a new web artist working with us. She did some very nice artwork for us. This is Gruner Veltliner versus Riesling. And really what we're just kind of looking at are some great examples. So let's start off with wine number one. This is one of the best values on our website. Stadt Krems, Gruner Veltliner from Kremstal, Austrian, 2021, considered an incredible vintage, by the way. One of the best of all time in Austria. I really like the Mosel wines in 21 too. There's reasons why those are maybe elevated in 2021, which we'll talk about when we taste a Riesling. But there's just one reason the 2021 is great in Austria, and that is it's a killer vintage for Gruner Veltliner. And so let's go for it and let's pull forward here. When we talk about Gruner, we're going to talk about a couple of different origins. One of them today is going to be Kremstal. And as you look at the map, you see Kremstal and Kamptal right next to each other. And there's just, and Wachau right here as well. And you can come down here to Trizenal as well. And these areas here, you can find great wines made by great producers, but the two famous areas are really Kremstal and Kamptal for the very, very high quality stuff. Our winery tonight, Stad Krems, established in 1452. You see a lot of this as well. Like, really? The brand's been around for coming up on 600 years. Yeah, we're talking about very old traditional wines grown on very special vineyards. They have 75 acres of vineyards. And they've been pushing forward as the popularity of these wines really grew significantly over the last 30, 40, 50 years. Take a look at what that looks like. We just have some amazing difference here. You know, this looks almost like a greener, plusher, uh, Douro wine valley. The plateaus that are probably, worked very hard to make them level, very steep hillsides, creating these terraces so that the work can be done and that you can get uniformity of ripeness. You can expose the grapes to this sunshine and yet work the vineyards without getting hurt and create something, practical and farmable. When we say Gruner Veltliner, where the wines typically are 100% that one grape variety, it's typically a grape of Austria. There are other places in the world that are trying to make some Gruner, such as Santa Rita Hills in California. But there's particular nuance and character that is really successfully carried forward in Austria. They are the leader in this grape variety. This is what they do is Riesling and Gruner. And so we kind of wanted to show though some difference. The picture here says Riesling on the picture. We are tasting a Gruner today. I want to make sure. Yeah, Gruner Veltliner. Same bottle, but it says Gruner on the label. And they do make both. Most producers do make both. Very similar productions, very similar stylistic wines, but we're going to see some differences today. The Gruner carries forward some really interesting aromatics and a much different mouthfeel and really carries itself in a really unique way. So we'll talk about and read a lot of the descriptions of these wines to get some really big kind of references. These wines carry some decent alcohols because the Austria is not a frozen spot by any means. This particular first version is at 12.5, but they can go up significantly from there. Um, and they wear their alcohol very well. There tends to be medium to full-bodied wines. They are dry. They have incredible acidity, and they have a very unique set of descriptive terms, things like stone fruit, lemon, radish, arugula, very savory notes in the Gruner. Minerality plays a huge part of the wine, as you saw from the photo. There's a lot to get some minerality behind. A lot of it's generated by its exposure, its proximity to the river, the types of soils that are very, water, clay kind of soils. It is considered the signature grape of Austria. And you can also smell things like white pepper, dill, and I think that says gherkin. Is that a pickle? Like a small pickle?
Yep.
There you go. The wines are generally interesting and spicy. This one got 92 points. Let's check out its review. And also in a blind tasting, if you'll spin that wine around, you can see kind of a green streak throughout a young Gruner Veltliner. And so it's greenish yellow color with some reflective qualities to it. There's also, here's some more savory tobacco, herbal, yellow stone fruits. All day long, I think of like white peaches when I think of Gruner Veltliner. Tangy zest, honey blossom, um, big bouquet. There's a lot to like here. White apples, finesse, rich acidity, minerality, long, long persistent finishes in these wines. And that's saying a lot. Take a look at that village, that exposure there. Really severe, really like, wow, beautiful. What's really kind of jaw-dropping is that this wine's a lot of great wine for $15.95. I taste wine every day, and when I find wines of this quality at this price, I get pretty excited. And we're coming to the end of my giant purchase of this wine. I know that the price is going to leap. Probably this is the new vintage will be coming in soon. 22, not bad. 23, not bad. But 21 is such good vintage. So I went in and I bought 10 cases of this wine. I'm down to my last 11 bottles for this show. Um, And so I bought heavy in 21 because I knew it was such a good vintage and this was such a good price. And sure enough, the price wholesale has gone up pretty significantly. It's probably over $20 for the newer vintage. Let's taste this together. Just that nose of really beautiful white peach just screaming out of the nose. Got some wonderful rocky. I get like this the soils have been described as kind of like clay and sand, and you can really kind of smell kind of that wet earth in the glass behind that fruit. Pretty fruit forward for a European wine. Get a little hints of some petrol. Hmm. There's so much wine there for $16. I think this is better than I even remember it. It's quite, um, there's just a lot there. It's got a lot of personality. I've spit that wine out. I'm 10, 15, 20 seconds. My mouth is just tingling with acidity, cleansed, refreshed. That is such great food wine right there. And I would challenge all of you to think, when's the last time you walked into a restaurant and thought about having a Gruner Veltliner by the glass? Maybe next time you go out to dinner, you'll see one and you'll say, that's going to be perfect with my seafood. Certainly can have it with some pork, and it's a white wine that carries over into like the other white meats. And I really like this with, certainly the type of charcuterie, sausages, things like that that you would have in this part of the world, and smoked fish all day long, all day long. That is so delicious. Wow. Just sat in traffic for an hour getting to the office, running errands and running crazy for the past couple of weeks. I had to move. Well, didn't have to, but I wanted to. And we found a great new place but we're really having to make it great. Upgrading a lot of things, buying some beautiful things for the house. It's kind of fun in that way until you get the bill, but it's we're the moving part was so stressful. It was crazy. And by Monday this week, I literally went home after not even a full work day. I think I called it early. I went home and just stared at the wall. I was just on. So I'm in the rebound and I'm feeling pretty good today because I've slept like 2 nights in a row, about 12 hours in a row each night. I can do that once in a while. And I really needed it. Feeling good. The bags are gone too, which is nice. All right, let's go back in. Any comments on that wine? What do you think, guys? What do you think? Am I crazy? Isn't that good? $16?
I
I think
actually,
it's, sorry, go ahead.
no, I actually really like this wine, and I don't usually like really minerally wines, but there's a softness to it. It holds up, and I have to tell you, when you put up the price, I was actually really surprised
Yeah,
Good, good.
because
Yeah,
you could have put up double that number, and I wouldn't have been surprised.
uh,
That's
100%, 100%. We will taste wines that are like 8 times as expensive as this tonight. And you may like those less because this one's generous. I mean, it's hard not to like this wine.
and
And
it's ready to drink. It doesn't need.
yeah, that's the thing about 21 too, obviously 4 years in the bottle, but This is really made to be drank pretty early in its life already, and it's a great vintage, and it's a very good producer. It just checks a lot of boxes.
Yeah, it's
And
got a great
what
finish, very long finish.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
It's just got it just I think the finish is probably one of its strongest suits. I mean, you put it in your mouth and you it's kind of like, whoa, I didn't realize how much information was in that
Right.
glass. And it just keeps unwinding. So really, really kind of a no-brainer. And I'm gonna taste with the vendor next week and see what vintage and where we are on price point. I'll probably bring in the new vintage, even though it's more, because it's still this is just such a value equation. Um, and you're not going to be able to go out and buy more 21 at this point.
I mean, I cheated and sipped ahead, and of the first three for drinking now, this first one is my favorite of the three.
Awesome. Thanks for admitting your guilt.
Yeah, I
Tasting
could do
ahead.
that.
You're not allowed to taste ahead. Come on. Let's go. Wine number two. All right. Now we're gonna flip to a Riesling muscle. And this is a great producer, Zilliken. And I think this is one of the Rieslings that kind of I remember years and years ago. A lot of people immediately say they don't like Riesling before they've even tasted a great Riesling. Um, and I went out to dinner with a group of people, and a couple of friends were like, can we have red wine? I don't really like sweet wine, all that stuff. Bought a bottle of Zilliken, and it blew everybody's mind. Oh, I gotta buy that one. I'm like, no, they're all pretty damn good. So this is a super producer again, 2021. This is a GG. I want to spend a minute on that. Gross Gewächs. What does that mean? If German wines could be any more difficult to understand what's in the bottle, it almost takes a PhD to figure out what you're about to drink with German wines. And they keep trying to make it simpler, and in doing so, they keep making it more difficult. They even shortened it to GG. They've taken away, some of the colloquial stuff that was on the label. They used to call the wines, different. They had little terms and stuff that only the Germans understood. It's still in German. That's tough enough. Let's take a look at where we're at. We're in the Mosel, which is just a spectacular spot to visit. There are a lot of like, I'm not, I haven't succumbed to the idea of doing a cruise yet. Never done a cruise. Well, I have done a cruise, and it said because I did a cruise and it was a bad one, I said I would never do a cruise. I could see a day where, I might do a cruise on the right company with the right company with no kids on the cruise ship. Um, and they have these river cruises now, and if as long as they have the no kid zone, I might do a river cruise down the Mosel. That might be kind of interesting because it is tough to drive through the Mosel. It's very hilly, and it's just hard to be the driver. It's great to be the passenger to look out the window and see all the amazing sights, but if you just don't pay attention and you're not watching the road, you could end up dead really fast. Very steep and really an interesting place to go. I never actually really drove it. I was driven from one point to another a few years back and had, very nice experience. Everything's pretty like they're very modest there. There's no opulent castles and crazy displays of wealth, but very functional, practical winemaking very clean, very on point type of producers. Dorothy Zilliken is the producer now. She took over for her father, who she was working with since 2007, and she then became the winemaker in 2016. So this is very common too. Dad stays in charge until he's confident that the next generation's ready to go. Really beautiful, crazy hillsides that they basically, decided where they could plant grapes based on where the snow melts. And those are on these kind of I'm sorry, southwest facing slopes where you'll see the earth first through the snow on these particular undulations coming out along the river. And only on those slopes will you see grapes. The rest of it's going to be forest and houses. You might see some other type of crop planted in a non-southwest facing slope, but it is pretty much left up to the slopes and to the exposures to be able to get the grapes even ripe to ripen. This producer carries very high ethos in that they're biodynamically grown. So these grapes, that's almost preposterous to think about biodynamics in a place where you can only grow on certain slopes because it's too cold. That's trying to be biodynamic in that zone. It's got to be so difficult. No herbicides, no pesticides, no fungicides, nothing except for, maybe some teas, things that you might make from different natural path type of gardening. And so that's a very high standard. Um, and easily when you're biodynamic, you're going to lose a lot of fruit to keep your biodynamic status. Um, the aromas here: dried pear, candied lemons, orange blossom, smoky reduction. I don't think I even finished my sentence about Gewächs. So let's go back and just talk about that for a second. In fact, I think I found a good way to do that. I was looking for something to say. No, I didn't. I found it, but I closed it. So I'll just tell you. Gewächs basically is a dry wine made from a gross lager. Okay, what does that mean? Gross lager means it's like a Grand Cru vineyard. It's a single vineyard wine made from Riesling that is dry. That is a gross Gewächs. And this category not been around all that long. Started in about 2003. These wines have to be fully ripened. You can't pick halfway and make this wine. You have to get them fully ripe. You're looking at alcohols somewhere around 14%. You're pushing for full dryness, and it's really a dry expression of Riesling. So pretty interesting difference there because these are not sweet, although you will pick up some of that typical German, you know, nose, and you might even think it's going to be sweet. Then you taste it and you're like, oh, now I get it. So let's take a look at where we're at. This is don't like this map. I think there's a better one in the future. Let me point that out. All right. So this is Riesling. It is the main grape of German wine. There are wines that they make from the grapes at different ripeness levels. They measure the sugars in the fruit and they come up what's called a must weight, the weight of the sugar in the juice. the Uxla, and that is how they make their mathematical equations for fermentation. They do some maths and they decide, okay, we're going to let this ferment to X point, then we're going to stop fermentation, leaving this much sweetness to balance this much acidity. And I always tell people that these wines have so much acidity, it would be like making lemonade, and you got to have a little bit of sugar in your lemonade to make it drinkable and enjoyable. So that's how they do some of these calculations. But as the globe has been warming, as their fruit has been getting riper and riper, as they discover what the best vineyards are, they decide to go for a GG wine, a Gross Gewächs, uh, and probably only make it in the very best vintages. This is an exceptional wine built for aging in the cellar. This wine got 94 points. That's a good look at a typical uh, German vineyard on steep hillsides. We're at $72. Let's take a look at how this one's performing. The nose is much different than the Gruner Veltliner, and you really lean more into the smells, this type of smells that you'd get in Riesling and the sweeter Rieslings, but they're here. There isn't the sweetness behind them. A lot of maybe slightly underripe pineapple. Very floral. Put that in your mouth and feel how that thing is just chiseling away at your teeth. Pear, candied lemons, orange blossom. Now I get that elegant smoky reduction where that was coming from. These wines are grown on slate-driven soils. Slate is basically petrified shale. I don't know if I can say it that way. Uh, Mr. Handel, are you a geologist?
Uh, I never was able to keep the slates and the shales, and they're both metamorphic rocks, and I don't remember which one is. One comes before the other developmentally, and I'd just have to look it up or I'd get it wrong.
All right. Very cool, very cool. But I do think that the slate is, and there's pink slate, blue slate, um, gray. It's really a brittle stone that helps this grape grow in Germany because it also retains some water because it's got so many little nooks and crannies. And then it also has reflective qualities too. So these slate soil comes sliding down the hill and they pick it up and bring it back up into the mountain, put it back underneath the vines. They do not want any erosion.
So for me, this wine is a bigger wine than the first wine. And I get a real leading edge of almost like underripe citrus peel as I start off. And I'm left wondering, did I not open it up and let it sit open long enough, or it just really needs another couple of years, or both?
I totally think this wine is made for, if would you drink your Grand Cru Burgundy from 2021? Probably not. This is really attempting to do something significant, long aging. I mean, this thing is so tightly wound. It says razor sharp precision. I can almost feel the acid cutting my tongue. I mean, it's really of sharp wine.
It's
And
especially the leading edge, as you for me.
yeah,
That's why I asked if I didn't open it. I should have left it open sooner earlier than I did.
and and I'm not saying that you can't find pleasure drinking this wine. I think a little food would really be like impactful on the pleasure of this wine. This wine is really going to be at its best with great cuisine. Um, but I do love the nuances in the nose. And like I tell people, when you drink a lot of wine, you start to really enjoy less. Like there's a subtlety here and kind of a lack of sweetness. And I love super high acid wines. Those really make my palate just happy. Now, I don't buy wines for my palate, to be honest. This one kind of leans into it, but this is, what we're doing here today. We're tasting dry Riesling versus dry Gruner and seeing what some of the differences are and some of the nuances and stuff. This is just a really good example and a very good version, a very dependable producer. I carry a couple of wines from this family typically, and they're always delicious. Rausch is a really important vineyard. That's the Grosslager, and it is uh, often competing with one of the best, to be one of the best wines of the vintage. The scores here are a little light. I think uh, I'm not saying this wine should be a higher scoring wine, but you buy these wines before the scores come out, and you kind of like, oh, yay, I got a big score. I'm used to seeing this wine get 97s and 98s. So, 21, though, let me tell you, Germany and Austria were really different in 2021. 2021 was that year that if you turned on the news somewhere around July, there were rainstorms in from Champagne all the way to the Mosel, and parts of vineyards were being washed away in 2021. So imagine being a biodynamic vineyard in one of the hardest rain accumulation vintages of all time. And so why some of these wines are so profound in 2021, especially in Germany, is they didn't really make any base wines. They, or if they did, they took all their best wines and put them in their base wine. They call it repli. They replied all, poured down their best highest end wines into their base wines just so they could have the base wines. And then they apologetically made very little high end single vineyard gross lagas. So this is kind of the story behind this one. And so maybe a little bit of suffering from the 21 vintage is evident here, but it's still, I adore this wine. I love it. And I think it's got a lot of character. And man, this with a great food would be so spectacular. One of my favorite sushi bars in downtown LA. I go in there and you have to be there at 5:30 because the people there don't take reservations. They line up outside the door and they let you bring in wine. I think there's a corkage charge now, but everybody sitting at the bar, at the sushi bar, is really into sushi. The people that sit at the tables, they want to eat Japanese food. People sitting at the sushi bar, which is quite expansive, has got just like lots of Japanese people there too, and everyone's got wine in front of them, and the wine list kind of sucks. So the secret is out. Everyone's bringing great wine. And we're all kind of like, well, you want to try this, you want to try that, and it's a great place to meet amazing people, and it's a bastion for Dodger fans. So if you are into it, you want to head to this little sushi bar in downtown LA in Japantown. All right. I saw a comment. I want to make sure I respect the chat box. Thanks, Ray Marie, for your comment. Gia, how you doing?
Doing great. That wine was very, very unique.
Yeah, it really is. There's a plushness to it, but it finishes so dry. I just the hair on my wrist is standing straight up. I just really love tasting GG wines, and we're just getting started. We're going to taste some others. You don't have to like this one as much as me. I'm going to show you some stuff that's definitely got some more critical praise behind it. But I really like the family, and I love the wine, and I'm always a supporter of this brand. Not everybody can achieve that biodynamic status either. That's very rare in the Mosel. Let's go forward. Taste number 3. Feeling better already. We had some rain here in Los Angeles today. Probably one of, if you know, if we get 10, 15 days of rain in a year, that's a lot in Los Angeles. So I was happy to have the rain because we're already in March, and I don't think we've had that many rain days. We had a floody type of rain like a little bit ago, but this was very gentle. It just made the traffic slow down a little bit, which is fine. When you're moving into a house, though, you've got so many things to do. Like today, we had the washing machine, the air conditioner, and the locksmith all there at the same time. Back to Gruner Veltliner with wine number 3. One of the like iconic wine labels. Uh, this label is crazy. In fact, I don't think the picture does it justice. You have to have it in your hand just to see how utterly Catholic this label is. It is such a piece of art, and it's very famous for this label as well. Some people don't remember the name, but they remember the label, and they'll call me, and they're like, "It's got like the Pope standing on the bottom." I mean, is it shut enough? No, it's white. Oh, I know which one it is. This is as the label says, this is Wachau. And now I want to talk about something else because our first Gruner was a Kremstal Gruner Veltliner. Didn't try to be anything more than that. This one takes a step up and gets rated based on its sweetness level. And these things can be this can be like the part where a lot of people miss. There's 3 words that matter on a bottle of Gruner Veltliner: Steinfeder, Federspiel, and Schmarg.
Is that a real word?
A real word. I mean, could you imagine being like in a spelling bee and they say spell Schmarg? Look at that. No, that is crazy stuff right there. But check out the numbers. They're different levels of ripeness and alcohol content. So Schmarg is really the highest achieving, as they really do reward the ripeness here. But Federspiels can really be like uh, where I think you can buy the wine and enjoy them without having to compete with all that alcohol and ripeness. So I'm not so sure I've decided which category I like the best, Federspiel or Schmarg. The Schmargs are the kind of the wines that a lot of people are looking for. But here, this is the Federspiel, and you can get different price points too. If you get up to Schmarg, they tend to get a little bit more expensive. Wachau is where we're at. Go into full slideshow. There we go. This is Emmerich Knoll is the name of the producer. Classic Austrian building. 1950s, so kind of new. 16 hectares. It's kind of new with a label that looks like it's from the 16th century. Maybe that's part of the reason they tried to like look old. Maybe that was it. Uh, there you go. They're the tasting notes here. The wineries produce so many cult level wines over the past decade that it would not be a problem to fill an entire book with their tasting notes. This is a great picture to kind of show you just how, steep and um, bold that hillside is. 100% Gruner, farmed sustainably. Again, kind of reminding you of some of the Gruner notes as we go into taste this wine. We're about 90 points on this wine. Um, a really good selling wine, a really enjoyable wine. And this is a again kind of on the value side of the fence. Maybe not quite as fair to have two wines of such good value from Gruner, but I think we'll be able to talk about that at the end a little bit more, why I stack these wines the way that I did. But let's take a look at the nose here.
Come on, Ian. You can't go back to that picture, the river. You
Yeah,
can't see yourself on a riverboat on a nice evening with a glass of wine on the deck, looking at that.
absolutely I could for sure, especially if it was my own boat. That would be amazing. The problem for me with cruise ships is, if I had the whole cruise ship with people that loved wine, and it wasn't a big cruise ship, maybe it was a smaller boat, I think I would enjoy that. When I travel, I like to go into that town and eat at the restaurant that the locals eat at. Cruise ships want to give you all the food you can eat, and you're going to eat from the same chef every day. I'm sure the food is good, but I like to find the little spots and really feel the local charm. And I think you have a hard time doing that on a cruise ship.
You need to try again, Ian.
Yeah.
Things have changed a lot. And I think the river cruises, you do get off in the towns and, spend some time. So as long as there's not a water slide on the ship, you know, and a kiddie pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, smaller ships definitely.
Maybe I'm being too hard on them, but my experience was pretty horrific.
Yeah,
So,
it sounds like it.
all right, can you see another couple of pictures? Pretty damn beautiful. We're at $50 for the Knoll. And I love finding this wine in restaurants. In fact, when I took the group with me to Barolo, we went to this great, we went for a cheese tasting, and people had that kind of a few hours to walk around town and shop and do some stuff. and we found this great little restaurant, and I just was, you know, pounding ourselves with Barolo every day, and the menu that we had for lunch just screamed white wine. So they had a bottle of this on the list, and my travel companion who uh, is our DMC, and she's Italian, and she's, the Italian people are just so good. They eat and drink only Italian wines. I couldn't get her to go to a Chinese restaurant or anything like that. She wanted a great Italian restaurant for lunch. And I'm like, "Are you sure?" And she's like, "Yes, this is a good place." So I went in and I made her drink German or Austrian Gruner Veltliner, which she had never had before. I couldn't believe it. All right. So on the review of this wine, James talks about it being very racy, vibrant with aromas of summer meadows, green and yellow apples, a touch of pepper. This is at the lower limit of medium bodied, as it has a healthy structure, fine tannins, neatly underlining the discrete fruit. Excellent balance and good length. $50. Let's taste it. Again, when I smell this wine, my mouth waters immediately. I think it's as I jokingly say it, I actually believe it too. My mouth is like preparing to be attacked. It smelt that. I was like, oh, prepare. Here comes the acid bomb. Voluminous, right? It's big wine. A lot of flavor, a lot of persistence, that white peach and that citrus. Yeah, we had it with a plate of melon and prosciutto. Mm, that was so good. And then we just came from a cheese tasting, so that helped out too. Really, really good stuff. In fact, next week, speaking of Italian, we're going to have a incredible little debriefing on top wines of Tuscany. The wine list is pretty crazy great, tasting some great classics, Chianti, Brunello, some super Tuscans. So check out the wine list. It's really, really good stuff. And that'll be next Wednesday. In fact, here's an overview of the next couple of weeks because we go pretty hard. I think there is a break coming because I go to Bordeaux at the end of the month. So yeah, from the 19th, we go 12th and 19th, and then we take a couple of weeks off as I go to Bordeaux. And then when we come back, we'll explore Portugal. I'll have an actual Bordeaux tasting, kind of bringing back some of the reports I've got and some of the information I've got that it's gonna go to work on that tasting there. And then we'll finish with the top wines of Napa and Sonoma. I've already got all the wines up here on each of these tastings, so please take a look and don't look past the Rhone classics. It's really just uh, an abundance of greatness, great wines at great prices, and really comprehensive as we go from uh, Rostau to Gingondas to Châteauneuf-du-Pape to Saint-Joseph and finishing Cornas. And some of these are just so good. Like really, really top stuff. Love it. Love it. And not expensive stuff, but top at its price point. And this is super value here for sure. I can cheat and do the Tuscany thing too, just so you could see. Vino Noble de Montepulciano, Super Tuscan, single vineyard Chianti Classico Reserva, another Super Tuscan, and a Brunello di Montalcino. All right, we're moving into wine number 4. And there are certain brands that carry a certain cachet. This is one of the top brands in Riesling. And I find it kind of interesting because it is in the Pfalz, 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 and not in the Mosel. But this is like really top end, high end stuff. They don't do anything that isn't awesome. You find anything that this producer makes, you're going to love it. This is also a GG, and it's also a 2021. There's the Pfalz on our map as opposed to the Mosel and the Rheingau and the Rheinheisen. You can see how they're stacked up. The Pfalz is over here. Philip David Couture is the owner, founded in 1774, 61 acres of vineyard. That's sizable. And turned organic in 2009. There's like a certain regalness and royalty involved here in the family. If you were to compare him to somebody, you'd probably compare him to brands like Domaine Romanée-Conti. If this is the Domaine Romanée-Conti of Riesling. The word vegan in wine, some people don't see that very often, just means they're staying away from any animal products the in the fining and the filtration. Some people use fish bone material, diatomaceous earth, um, and so that just by using that type of soil, it's no longer considered vegan. So they're definitely thinking about their vegan customers. It's 100% Riesling. There's going to be some really outstanding minerality in this wine. 96 points. Okay, now we're really talking here. Citrus, fresh herb, tons of finesse, beautifully balanced. To look at the Pfalz. There is slope here, but not the steepness of the Mosel. What do you got there, Mark?
All I know is, I can't finish all these samples.
Yeah,
I may not be able to dump this one.
there you go.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Good thing. Yeah, this one is pretty spectacular
And
stuff.
it's very drinkable right now.
$90 is kind of the target of this wine. I've seen it in Michelin star restaurants for well over $200 a bottle.
This is very nice.
Yeah, really, really good. And I want to drink it with you. So here we go. Charlie, good spot. Okay. Boom. You know, all of these wines too, the Rieslings, there's always a little hint of, that typical petroleum, gasoline type of smells there, petroleum product. It's there. But with these GG wines, it's so subtle, and the wines are so much more pure and floral, and the balance is really good because they're only using the best vineyards. They're only making them in great vintages. They're really making them for, kind of like trophy wines. That's outstanding.
Yeah, I won't dump that one. I'll finish that one.
Another thing about these wines, they're so resistant to oxidation. These jars will probably be, you could pour it back in that jar and have it tomorrow or the next day.
Mhm.
They will, when I go to Germany to taste with these producers, they'll pull sample bottles out of the refrigerator that have been open for 10 days. And they're
Oh,
still pushing gas because these wines have their own, they contain a lot of CO2 in the wine itself. So you just lift you open up the screw cap and it go, or a cork, you can hear it
thank
pop.
you. I can, but by the way, you talk about looking like samples. A friend of mine seen the jars in the refrigerator. I don't know if these were wine samples or a 24-hour lab collection.
Yeah, it depends. If we're doing Chardonnay, you might have to.
It had that look.
Ian, do you get some salty notes on this one? Very saline.
We'll spit in the jar instead of the cup. Yeah. Um, I love that about this wine. It does definitely have, and that I always tend to love the saltier version. This wine is just absolutely off the charts for me. This hits so many, checks so many boxes. Um, I love where it's at too. Like Mark said, it's really drinking in the groove. But
It's
you could totally age this wine for another 10 years, and that's what they would probably recommend. But
so
man,
what do you, because this wine tastes so balanced to me right now. What do you sort of expect it to do 10 years from now?
mm,
That
that's a
does,
really
you
good
know what
question.
I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but there's just layers that are not yet unwinding in this glass. It's still very youthful, and just needs to kind of continue to relax, and only time will bring that around. I'm not
Okay.
so sure the wine will change that much. I mean, I just think
Okay.
it'll put on a little bit more personality. Um, I I've maybe some of that freshness gives way to more personalities such as more dried fruits and maybe even more floral and more is kind of what I'm expecting it to do. Um,
Okay.
I think also, I think a lot of people are comparing these wines to kind of like white wines of the Northern Rhone, Viognier style wines that kind of are in their youth. They're really pretty and wonderful to drink, but they, after a few years, just kind of unlock and give you even more of all of that at the same time in more generous quantities. So I think that that's something I'd like to experience. Maybe with you, Mark, we'll have one of these style of wines at one of my great
Well,
dinners.
it's sort of, I sort of have a much better understanding of how reds age and not much of an understanding of how whites age. I just,
Yeah,
it's an education gap.
well, being able to taste 10-year-old GG, there's not a lot of people that were making them back then, so it's kind of a rare thing, and I don't think many people have experienced it yet. So, um, but I will say, I want to thank all of you for being here tonight, because selling high-end Riesling, Gruner tastings isn't the easiest thing in the world. I was really impressed that I don't know if we sold this out. I think we still had one kit left, but um, it was a pretty great show up right away. So thank you guys for doing it. Um, but if I were to lead off a dinner with a flight of $100 Rieslings, I don't think people would get that excited about it at some of my dinners. Unfortunately, this category still has a lot of work to do, but maybe we all become uh what is that called? Like disciples of the or
Yeah.
something like that.
So, Ian, I have a question also, because you mentioned before that most people are turned off by Riesling because they think it's that syrupy sweet stuff. Looking at a label, what is the telling sign that it's going to be dry?
Well, GG will
GG.
absolutely get you there. Yeah.
Okay, no,
The
okay.
legal definition of a GG wine is that it's Grosslager, which is the Grand Cru, and
Yeah.
dry,
Okay.
and made from fully ripe grapes also.
Okay.
There are wines that have different names like fine herb and others that also get you close, but they still have some residual sugar and stuff. I I like the sweetness myself, and I drink so much. My store has this insanely large Riesling section, and it's not because I sell much Riesling, it's because I drink most of it. That bottle I'm taking to the Hollywood Bowl, I'm taking it to Thai food, I'm taking it, to parties because I know I'm going to be the only person that walks in with a bottle of Riesling. And it's you know
Well, I mean, the sugar works if there's enough acid
Right.
to go with it. If it's not, if they're just sweet and flabby, they're like, But if
Right.
there's enough acid to balance it, I actually like some of the sugar in them too. So same thing I like in some of the Chenin Blancs too.
So if you're in a restaurant and there's no, GG Rieslings on the menu, I guess you just ask the sommelier and say, is this a dry or a sweet?
well, in fact, if it doesn't say GG, it probably is sweet.
Okay. Okay.
And then you've got, how sweet is it is the question.
Yeah.
And in the predicate's fine, there's a whole scale. Um, Let me see how hard that would be to find it.
Isn't Trocken a dry Riesling?
Correct. That's an
That's right.
excellent point. Excellent point. Trocken is dry and it doesn't carry all of those other ethos. It's just
Okay.
dry. So thank you for reminding me. Trocken is the place to find value too. Um, and so when you're looking at the store, I have a few different Trocken wines, and that's kind of like the the wines that are made for people that want to drink dry but don't want to pay for GG wines.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good, excellent point. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Both of you. Thanks.
Um, and you live up in San Francisco area. I'm sure you'll find a number of restaurants that have um is that still the case, Ray? I can't remember. Did you move that back down here? You were in
No,
San
I haven't. No. I'm stuck up here. No, I love it up here, but I was born in Silver Lake and lived there for many years and I miss it terribly.
Well, the good news is, though, your neighborhood has many more restaurants that have great Riesling lists than we do down here.
Okay.
The number of restaurants that carry pages of Riesling are very, very few. Um, One of the exceptional restaurants in Los Angeles is Providence, and their sommelier wine director packs that wine list with Riesling. If you want to go have an incredible Riesling experience or Gruner Veltliner,
Hmm.
that's the restaurant that has the best wine list in those categories. And you'll see
Yeah.
the same wine. You'll probably see that wine that we just drank from 10 vintages. Uh,
Mm.
and it'll be 250 bucks a bottle.
$100. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Why I drink better wine at home.
there you go. All right. We go onward. And let me get that slideshow open. All right. So Müller-Catoir, think about that is something to look for in the future too, or too, because uh, every wine I've ever tasted from them is really, really spectacular good.
Ian, logistical question. If one's buying off the website and one's coming to a dinner later this month, can one just put a note in there? Is there a place to put a note to hold for the dinner? And will you bring wines to a dinner? Or is that too much of a pain in your butt?
You know, I don't like to do that.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
It's too much of a pain when you're organizing a
It
dinner.
it is. It's too many moving parts, and I'm pretty stressed out before a dinner. There's so much to, micromanage because it's just me and a couple of people. So yeah, going to events and bringing wines just really, I've forgotten it sometimes too, and I feel terrible. And
That's why I asked the question.
yeah,
And no offense was taken at the negative answer.
yeah, I I try to keep my life a little less painful than that. Next, we're going back into Gruner with one of the great families. This is Pichler, Rudi Pichler. I'm so excited to taste this wine with you because even the salespeople don't get samples of this wine. Look at that, 98 points. This is Schmarg, remember, the super ripe. And it's also from high altitude. I know that because it says Hochrain on the label, um, which is a higher altitude site. And so uh, in and around Wachau, but this is, it does say Wachau. Okay, cool. Here's the Pichler property. None of them are really big, mansion-like places, but a lot of them have cellars and caves and have built their wine storage deep underground. It's founded in 1731, 37 acres. He makes both Riesling and Gruner. Uh, and this is like on the reference page, this would be one of the top producers for sure.
It's a random question, but is there a reason why a lot of the German wines are in the tall, thin bottles?
It's a great question. So back before wine labels even existed, the bottle shape told you where it was coming from. So the tall bottle came from probably Alsace, German area. And then, the round Burgundian shape and the Bordeaux shape. Those shapes told you where the wine was coming from.
Thank you.
You got it. Here's our quintessential description: stone fruit, lemon, radish, arugula. See how that holds up. Oh yeah, asparagus. Riesling and Gruner with asparagus. Yes, it works. One of the only wines that can pull that off. And I will tell you this though, if you visit Germany during asparagus season, you are in trouble because you are going to have asparagus 3 meals a day. And I don't have to tell you what that does. It is evident. Gruner Veltliner, we talked about this slide before. Here is the 98-point review. Youthful nose, spectrum of stone fruit, licorice, chamomile, lime zest, extremely long and structured finish that keeps pumping out apricot fruit, yet remains so precise. Yum, yum. Let's go. And I've tasted with a couple of those people in that picture before. We're at 75 bucks. This is a bargain because this wine is so revered. Mm. That nose again just makes my mouth water. Again, a little bit of that saltiness, right, Gia?
Yeah, and herbal.
Yeah, yeah. And I like the idea of kind of exploring the tea and the herb cabinet with this wine. There's even kind of a rocky minerality that I want to think is like flinty or
This is one of those things where what we each taste is a little different. So those sort of like petroleum overtones for me in this wine are much too strong.
mm,
It's just
That's
it's a flavor I'm very sensitive to.
I got that really big one on the nose, but to me the nose on this one is completely different than what goes into your mouth. It's almost a shock.
and think about black licorice before you taste it because I can totally smell that.
Yeah, after you said that, I
Hmm?
definitely that kind of made me think maybe that's what I smelled instead of the petroleum. But
Yeah, I think if you think black licorice instead of petroleum, it kind of
try it again. Yeah.
No, it's just an edge that for me is a bit off-putting, and that's is
maybe it kind of gives you like a little PTSD to like some bad medicine experiment you had
no.
because it does have almost medicinal like there's some really interesting um uh, bitterness and leafiness and stemmy. I mean, it's really got a lot of complexity to it. Not necessarily all easy to like, but really complicated and really interesting. And I just wanted to click into the line one more time. It says I have 9 in stock. Let's see. Spectator. Concentration is driven by a spiny, salty minerality. It gives shape to white peach, white blossom, celery root. There's a good one. I like that savory celery root, which by the way is one of my favorite cooking ingredients. I love doing a puree of celery root instead of mashed potatoes.
Mm.
And if you had this with my seared scallop on a puree of celery root with a brown butter and sage, you'd be fat like me.
It's really funny because Bill and I have been sharing food now for it was 36 years comes this past week. Um, we're actually conscious of the fact that different bitterness and different things taste different to the two of us, and we're very conscious of because we talk about food. In fact, he can't stand sage. It's a flavor that just grates on him, and I love it. And we each like different bitter things.
Hmm.
His mom and I both like Chinese bitter mill, and he can't stand it.
Ooh, I can't stand it either. My wife loves bitter melon. I eat it, but I only eat it because it's on the
Because
table.
Alice is right. When Bill's not here, May and I will make dishes with bitter. Yeah, but that and we just accept the fact that our taste buds are different on that. That
Yeah, and that is one savory beast right there. There's nothing sweet about this wine. And but it's Schmarg, so it's got all that alcohol and body and character and high elevation, concentration, um, and really, these guys are like masochists. You could just totally tell. Ah, I'm gonna take that home. Try that later. Fortunately, when you're moving, you don't have a very good selection of stuff in the refrigerators.
So Ian, is this still moving your business or this is moving your home?
So I moved my home to a place where I can now host some classes and dinners. And it's kind of a long story, but I used to live
Ah,
I used to live in the exact same building, and I moved out to to have a smaller place, and then have a I was opening my own tasting room and wine shop, and that I signed that lease a month before the pandemic. So that wine shop tasting room never opened. I did pay rent on it for 2 years,
ugh.
which
LA didn't do what New York did, and businesses were allowed to break leases in New York City. They actually passed a special law.
I wish I wanted to break his face, but I couldn't break it the lease, and it's gonna mess up my credit rating and all that stuff, and I just paid it, and luckily I had the money that I could lose, um, and so I'm battling my way back, and we're going back to the kind of plan that we had before to kind of rebuild for the future. So, but it might offer some spots where we can do some different pop-up dinners with some different chefs and stuff like that. I think you'll really like the space. We're gonna spend a lot of money making it really, really nice. All right. Next in line is something I'm super excited to taste with you. This is a brand called Eva Frick. This is got the distinction of getting 100-point score, and it's also from the Rheingau. So this is dry. They don't have GG wines in the Rheingau. They have this Trocken, this dry style. And this is Rheingau 23. So baby. I have been to the Rheingau, and it's beautiful, and the properties are more castle-like, larger, um, really it's kind of set amongst, the forests and stuff. The winery says began making her own wine in 2006 before founding the winery in 2011. 11 acres or hectares, 27 acres. So it's a baby
Is this
brand.
the same winery we had before? Because this is the same picture.
Is it?
Yeah, we've seen this picture before.
I think the picture is accidentally the same.
Oh, okay.
My designer probably did not find a picture and
Oh, okay.
change it out. But very good notice that you noticed that. I did not. But check out this property up on the hill. You see that? That's what I'm talking about. Like castles, and there's a lot of them. It's really beautiful. They are old school. The biggest example. I mean, they're just ancient. In fact, not even old school, ancient school. Sorry, I'm losing it. Let's go back in and go to the next slide. There we go. Okay, organic and biodynamic. Her vineyards are biodynamic. Uh, some of them have been rated biodynamic. Some of them are in the process of getting there. 100% Riesling. That's what she does. Um, this is the Lorch vineyard. It is just 100% Lorch, I think. I think this is 100% Lorch. Description here, again, salty, expressive, and leans into that salinity character. Here she is, quite lovely. 100 points. Yellow peach and Amalfi lemon. When you give it 100 points, you've got to name the lemon type. That's a requirement. uh, James, when he gets a 100-point wine, he puts some extra work in really honing that review. There are a number of other reviews that are quite high. I believe, 98, 99, pretty common on this wine. So kudos to James for really nailing this. He's recommending a very large glass for this wine as well. That is the lemon curd that you smell in the nose is so intense, and it's so focused. 145 for the big dog. Holy moly. Wow. That is lip smacking. That is monumental. And there's so much purity and so much concentration there. It's really like bionic. I mean, it's just really, really special. Pretty cool. Um,
Is there more residual sugar in this for Trocken, or is it just the fruit concentration that I'm tasting?
I think it's a combination of a couple of things, just the concentration, the vintage. It probably got pretty ripe. What is the alcohol here? It says 13. It is the winery's label.
Uh,
Can I ask a question? Does anybody not like that?
This is a big wine.
Yeah. I mean, it's maybe hard to imagine when you would pull that off the shelf to drink that. But man, with a Michelin star chef at the hands of this wine, I could see.
So what do you think it would taste best with? It's very different from the GG, so I definitely can tell the difference after we have the conversation about Trocken versus GG, but it's so soft and smooth and flavorful and just a hint of sweet, so it's not overwhelming.
Mhm.
This is an empty glass.
So much for saving it.
Yeah. Two
I-
of them are really
Maybe
low.
some cheese. I'm thinking cheese.
Mm.
Mhm. I'm I'm thinking uh well, my mind immediately goes to like a full flavored, rich sushi style dish. Something like tuna belly, but I believe it would go better potentially with something where the sushi chef says no soy sauce. To put a little bit of the some of the spicy, what's that green citrus,
Wasabi.
Wasabi.
not the wasabi. It's got like it's a citrus
Yuzu.
yuzu. Thank you.
It's a lot. It's a citrus. It is a citrus.
Yeah.
When would the yuzu work with this? I don't know. You'd have to try it.
It's a fight.
Well,
Yeah, I think, yeah, soy and anything that's salty would make this taste like sugar probably, but
mm,
I have to say, this is a pretty big wine, and all I have since I ate dinner before we came on is I just have a couple of crackers here to have a cracker between the wines.
yeah,
And I had this with no real food at all, and I enjoyed every bit of it.
I agree.
What is that?
scallop carpaccio.
Oh, yes, you don't have to twist my arm to eat scallop. Actually, if you just give me, yes, thin slices of big raw scallop, yeah,
Yeah.
I can do that.
Citrus, salt and pepper, maybe some chopped chives, toasted, really good bread with a good grill mark on it with some olive oil and this wine. Uh, Basically like crudo, ceviche type of dishes would be really, really good. And I do think that this would be amazing, amazing with a sushi meal. I would love to see what it does with the Japanese citrus, but it might line up, it might not, but I can't imagine it not. It's just this wine is so persistent, and it would really really work its way through. Um, there's one particular when they take this salmon and they basically like use a flame and it's still raw, but the outside has been cooked, and then they spread the yuzu on top. So it's like a charred salmon with yuzu. That's it. That's what I would put here. They put that. How would that be served? I guess it's served on rice with some dried seaweed. Um, but kind of like as a hand roll, or
Oh, when they use the sweet soy, is that the one you think?
it's no soy sauce, just the yuzu
Okay.
and the gr and this but the salmon's basically raw, but we're talking about really good, rich, fatty salmon, or river trout, and the yuzu with the grill mark, and just like a flash of heat to make that really work out. It's so delicious, and I can totally taste that with this. Um, but it's fun to be able to taste these wines. And when I got this 100-point Riesling, I said, we've got to put this tasting together because I want to try this wine. This is not one that you get to sample um, before it comes in. There was only like 20 cases of it that came into America. So we got one of them because we jumped on it. Um, it's a $150 bottle of wine, so it's going to take some time for people to discover this, but I'm very proud to have it, and I'm already plotting when I'm going to open it again. In fact, I am putting together 100-point dinner soon. I think we're going to pour this at that dinner with some food. And then coming down the pipe, I've got this crazy older vintage dinner, great wines of the world. I just got some special stuff and delivered to me today. I can't wait to announce that dinner, some really crazy dinners that we put together. And some of them now will uh, potentially, it's probably 6 months before I'm doing it at my space because I've kind of got all my dinners plotted into June and July. But I've still got to get the silverware and the all that other expensive stuff. I can't afford that yet, so we'll get. But
Yeah. So Ian, I'm filling out. I need one more bottle for a half case after
yeah,
tonight.
What are you
And
gonna?
my dad likes sweet Rieslings from Germany and Austria. So going the opposite sugar end than what we have tonight, for someone who likes the sweet ones that still have some nice finish, what do you like that's on your website right now? Or should we take this offline?
I'm gonna open up the website and see if I can answer your question. You're you said your dad likes it sweet and how sweet?
Well, at least it can't be totally acidless. It's got to have some structure. But he likes his Rieslings on the sweeter side. And it's going to
Well,
be his 90th birthday when he's here in a few weeks. So
well, one of my favorites is even though it says cabinet, it's got some great sweetness to it. It's little Rheinheisen for $20.
the
Um,
Strub.
super
Okay.
fun. It's got just a little bit of a kind of a fresh spritzy bubble and a,
Hmm.
9% alcohol. Um, that's been a favorite. I know that we're almost out of that wine because I've had it for
Okay.
a while.
I only need to add one bottle on. So
Yeah, that's a good one to try. If you want to try Nobility, for the Fritz Hog, 95 points.
that's still a cabinet, but I thought the cabinets were dry wines as well.
No, they're younger. They're basically the first harvest. So they have very low alcohol, like typically between 8 and 9, because
Okay.
they've arrested the fermentation, and so
Okay.
they retain some of the sugar, and you get all this wonderful, vibrant, energetic freshness. And nobody's better than Fritz Hogg. It's really,
Okay.
really good producer. And the producer here, or the vineyard, is Brandberg. The vineyard name is Jufer. Just really a good site, and a lot of people think so. So that's a go-to.
Okay. And that's got a reasonable amount of residual sugar in it.
Yeah, that'll
Okay.
make your dad happy.
Good.
Well, thank you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight. And remember, you get the 10% discount. Use the code.
What's the code?
You got that in your email because each one of you got your own code.
Uh,
Yeah, if you don't find it, let me know, Mark. But it's on
yep, I
the
see it.
binder,
I see
and
it. No,
and you
there's a code in there.
yeah, that's what we do for people that buy the event, because the other folks will watch this outside of our tasting and in months and years to come. Um, but thank you guys for being here tonight. It's been a real fun to be able to taste these wines with you. Some of these I read about, I've wanted to taste, and now I've been able to taste them. And I'm already plotting this. A couple of these wines are going to be making it to some meals really soon.
It's really good. This one was really good, Ian.
Thank
Very
you.
Really
tasty. Yeah.
enjoyed it.
We're gonna keep pushing, a little bit more often, some of these really high quality gatherings. I can keep this one in the pretty attractive price point. Some of them will get more expensive, because the high quality wines get there, but there's so much value in these wines. These wines haven't changed price in 30 years. These Rieslings and Gruner Veltliners, they're the same price that they were 30 years ago. The categories are really getting smaller. The producers are giving up, and their land values are quite depressed. They can't sell their vineyards for much because there's just not enough demand in that category. So uh,
Really?
we'll see some contraction in the number of producers over the next 10 years for sure. And especially as, generations age out and the kids don't want anything to do with it. So that's the downside. But maybe there'll be a movie about Riesling that'll spark everybody's interest again, and these wines will return to greatness, or more people will start to adapt and really enjoy dry Riesling. That's, I think, what they're hoping for.
Mhm.
Well, lovely to spend the evening with you. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll have some more stories next week. Come and join me for Tuscany, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for everybody.
Enjoy unpacking.
Go Dodgers!
Been
Go
there,
Dodgers.
done that, don't want to ever do it again.
No.
I'm hoping this is the last time for a long time, but I do want to move again. But
Actually, even if you get down to San Diego and see where we are now, you'll see why we're not moving again.
oh, I believe it. Yeah.